Event number one is something known as the Right Club. This is not a local event. This is actually a national event that takes place usually in like bars and stuff around the country. But basically the idea is we give a concept to one teacher, we give the opposing concept to another teacher, and they have to, in 5 minutes, defend their position and kind of take down, so to speak, the other person's position, okay? Today, let me introduce, you can see their photos on the screen, but Ms. Bosman, come on out. This is a first-time Right Club bouter. Please give her a round of applause. Doing an event at Writers Expo for the first time. No, you did a story before, didn't you? Second time, okay. You know, it's kind of nerve-wracking, right? Like, so, yeah, we're very appreciative when teachers get involved. This is awesome. The next guy is 0 for 2 in this event. I'm curious to see how this plays out. So come on out, Mr. O'Neill. What's that? You are due, yeah. See, I tried to set you up for a little. You guys will figure out who the winner is later. I have an actual decibel meter on my phone we're gonna bust out, so you'll get to make some noise. So Mr. O'Neill is gonna say it's actually better to be a young teacher. Ms. Bosman's gonna defend it being better to be an old teacher. Who do you wanna hear from first? All right, Bosman, you're up first. The mic is live. You can use the stand. Best of luck.
Hi. Okay, here we go. Experience, according to Merriam-Webster, is the observation of or participation in events as the basis of knowledge. Synonyms, expertise, savviness, and know-how. Antonyms, ignorance, unawareness, and unfamiliarity. I could almost win the argument here, but I'll keep going. Young teacher brains are exploding with new ideas, tons and tons of new ideas that they've never actually tested with real students. Sure, Padlets, Kahoots, and other new technology is fun, but what do we do after that? The older teacher has a plan B when no one else in class has done their homework. These older teachers, or as I like to refer to them, lords of learning, have backup plans when the YouTube link fails or the overhead projector stops working. Older teachers, which in terms of teaching may be like 40, know what to do when a number of scenarios arise in the classroom because the older teacher has been in these situations before. Teachers have their own classrooms at 22 years old, 3 years before their brains are fully developed. The part of the brain that is still developing these connections, the prefrontal cortex, that part of our brain that controls attention, planning, decision-making, impulse control, logical and organized thinking, risk management, and short-term memory, all things that seem pretty important in teaching. The prefrontal cortex helps us plan out units, thinking quickly when something doesn't go as planned, or at the very least, remembering students' names. Nothing beats experience. In most professions, experience is considered the most important factor in predicting effectiveness. I wouldn't want to be the patient for a doctor's first surgery, or a passenger on a pilot's first flight, or have a lawyer defending me in their very first case. But sitting in a young teacher's classroom, I may be getting their first lesson 180 times in a row. The word old has a negative connotation for most people, but it doesn't have to be that way. Life experience often brings wisdom, perspective, and those are valuable commodities that young people don't have much of. The prototype, the beta version, the template, the rough draft, shout out to Writers Week, is never the final refined product. Have you heard of WD-40? That name represents the 40th attempt. They finally found the formula to degrease and protect against rust. The Dyson vacuum had 5,271 prototypes before it became the bestseller that it is today. Did the young version of Dyson clean up the carpet? Maybe, but it probably wasn't effective. I Googled products that were perfect the first time around, and I couldn't find anything. I wonder if it's the same for young teachers. It would definitely help my argument. What about the value of young teachers? Of course, I think Mr. O'Neill may mention that young teachers are enthusiastic and energetic. They're full of new ideas, they're better at computers and technology, and they're more relatable to their students. But what really makes a wonderful teacher? A passion for teaching, a desire to keep getting better, high expectations, kindness, and a sense of humor. All things that just get better with age and practice. And when I needed help and advice on how to defend my side and take victory over Mr. O'Neill, where did I go? Older, experienced teachers at LHS. When asked the question, what do you do better today than you did the first few years of your teaching? Mr. Mark said, there's no substitute for experience here. I've seen most of the mistakes that kids can make, and I better understand what's important and how to facilitate understanding of those core concepts. The teacher you are today is the worst version of you as a teacher that will ever exist. Teacher 2.0 is better than teacher 1.0, and teacher 18.0 is way better than 2.0. Miss Laura said that today she can better show her personality compared to when she first started her career, and that her compassion has grown exceptionally compared to when she first started teaching. Miss Naslin explained that she does boundaries better with students today. She used to want to be their friend and have them like her. Today she believes in compassion, but also high rigor. If she has high expectations, they respect the classroom environment much more. And ironically, or not, they seem to like her better now than they did at the beginning. Miss Brandt has learned to laugh at the ridiculous mistakes that she makes in class, rather than obsess about them. And she also knows the same mistakes that students make. She better understands that a student's heart matters much more than what we put in their heads. And in fact, on February 27th, I asked Mr. O'Neill this question, and he answered with the following. Oh, so many things. Logistics took me about 7 years to figure out. I used to spend so much time on grading, and I'm much nicer now. Once we know better, we can do better, but young teachers don't know better. Experience with anything allows a person to differentiate between what is important, what isn't, what can wait, and what cannot. I'd take an old teacher any day. And in a moment of transparency, I started writing this 2 years ago for Writers Week 2020, right before the pandemic. So I'm guessing it's pretty old compared to what Mr. O'Neill wrote down in his notebook. And for that, I feel good about it.
All right. There you go, Ms. Bosman, Mr. O'Neill. Best of luck.
Old teachers versus young teachers. It's really a no-brainer. You guys need to take it from somebody who's been both. Being a young teacher is better. And I know Boz just cited a whole bunch of people, but I know all of those people, and I'm pretty sure none of them remember when they're actually 22. So take that with a little grain of salt. New teachers can relate to their students better, so they can connect to their students better. Boz talked all about how connections are important. They are closer to a student's pop culture, so they're able to see the world through their lens. I don't like a single song that's been made since 2004. But a new teacher would totally know the difference between a Billie, is it Eilish? Is that what that is? A Billie Eilish and an Olivia Rodrigo. Understand that a Silk Sonic has nothing to do with a hedgehog, and I'd be willing to bet they know what a Harry Styles is. I think they also would know whose story to follow on the graham cracker and what's happening on the TikToker while I'm just reading a nice old-fashioned journal article. There's also the joyful folly of youth, the blissful innocence that comes with youth. Are there any sophomores here? Anybody? No? Sophomores mean wise fool. It's when you think you know something, but don't even know what you don't know. A new teacher can go charging headfast into an unknown situation, ready to take on any challenge, because there's no trepidation of what could happen. Old teachers, they tend to get stuck in ruts and talk themselves out of new things, because they're so sure what's going to happen. Why try new things when the old works just fine? Plus, new teachers bring new ideas. They totally know how to build a pear deck, do the cahoodling, and jam boards and whatnot. New teachers are the ones that are bringing in the newfangled ideas about grading and retakes and homework policies. I just do points for everything. But if it's new, it must be good, right? And stay off my lawn. And finally, new teachers have the energy. It takes a lot to do this every day, guys. I've been a 22-year-old teacher, and I've been a 42-year-old teacher a few years ago. And I can tell you the energy difference is real. One day you'll all understand. And don't even get me started on us old-timers having kids, and what does that do to our ability to spend time with our LHS kids? So at the end of the day, like I said, it's really a no-brainer. Whose classroom do you want to walk into all day? The crusty old son of a gun, me? Or the new young gun with something to prove? The choice is yours.
All right. And now, the choice is actually yours. In terms of who you think made the better argument. All right, this 42-year-old's going to try and figure out this newfangled, it's called like an if phony or something like that. I don't know. Oh, it's working. All right, my decibel meter. So I'm going to have you shout out, make as much noise as you want, for whoever you think the better bouter, right club bouter was. Are you ready? If you need to like loosen up for this, go for it. Okay. If you think it was Miss Bosman, make some noise. All right, I saw a max decibel level of 91 there. That's going to be hard to beat. If you think Mr. O'Neill was the better, make some noise. It was a 98. Well done, Mr. O'Neill. Congratulations, your first win. How does it feel?
It's great to get the first one. I'm sure I'm going to start a streak.
The first million's always, yeah, okay. You guys can stay here. We'll get the next bout rolling here. This is going to be interesting. I've been looking forward. We had this scheduled in 2020, just like this one, right? And we were going to do it twice. I think one of the people's no longer even here, and the other one like retired or something. So we had to like kind of hodgepodge. But let's welcome out the lady who taught me everything I know about teaching. She was literally, I student taught underneath her. So Mrs. LeMaistre, come on out. Somebody better ask her later what those trophies are actually from, because I'm really curious. Next up, I mean, you know his voice, right? It's like the golden pipes of LHS. Mr. Woods, come on out. All right, so Mrs. LeMaistre is going to be defending the concept of winning, and Mr. Woods is going to go for the opposite. Who do you want to hear from first? All right, losers, losing. I guess that's Mr. Woods.
Mr. Tooley, do I need to use a mic? Can you guys hear me back there? Do I need the mic for live streaming purposes? You do? I do need the mic. Okay, that's what I was waiting to hear. I'm not sure how long I can stay up here in one place, so be patient with me if I start to move around and freestyle. Yeah, I know, but then I might get mixed up with my pages. All right. Sorry. Did you start the timer yet? Here we go. Competition breeds resilience, a life skill that serves well. Winning with grace and losing with passion for improvement builds champions. Give me the kid who fights back tears while painfully shaking the winner's hands, the one who hides his or her face and sobs quietly on the bus because losing rips his or her heart out, that kid who aches to get back to work. Losing never hurts losers. It only hurts winners. The simple question of do you love to win or hate to lose can tell a lot about an athlete's or a coach's or an athletic director's competitive spirit. The mindset of hating to lose can be just as powerful, if not more powerful, than the feeling of loving to win. Losing is not a bad thing as long as it keeps you motivated. Losing is supposed to motivate you to work harder, push yourself, and set challenging goals. Losing can be used as a tool to learn what worked and what went wrong in order to strategize changes for the future. Viewing a loss as a learning experience rather than as a failure can make a huge difference for success in your life. John Wooden, legendary UCLA men's basketball coach, said, "Success is never final and failure is never fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts." So what motivates you more? A love for winning or a hatred for losing? I'm sure that there are many successful athletes out there that will tell you that they love to win more than they hate to lose. But if I had to pick a team to go to battle with, I'm picking the ones that hate to lose every single time. Hating to lose can manifest in several different ways. If you hate to lose, there are two ways to avoid that outcome. One, quit, or do whatever it takes to make sure it does not happen again. It all comes down to the courage you possess to respond to adversity and failure. You cannot be afraid of failure. If you are afraid to fail, then guess what? You're going to fail. Instead, you must use failure as fuel for improvement. I want to share a quick story about Kobe Bryant. This is a story about the power of correctly harnessed hatred for losing and how that can hold or make triumph out of ashes of defeat. In 1997, 18-year-old Kobe Bryant had the ball in his hands in a must-win game against the Utah Jazz in the playoffs. Kobe shot the ball with confidence and hit nothing. Straight air ball. They lost to the Utah Jazz. In fact, he shot 4 air balls late in that game. Kobe failed. His team trusted him to take and make the winning shot. He let him down. He could have hung his head in defeat, given up, and given in to the dark side of losing and avoided failure by never shooting again. His story should have ended right there, but it didn't. It was a turning point for Kobe, who would spend the entire offseason on his shot until the sun came up. Kobe decided to do whatever it took to not let himself feel that pain again. He harnessed the anger and frustration that comes with losing by manifesting his hatred for losing into a second-to-none work ethic. Kobe would go on to make 36 game-winning shots and cement his legacy as one of the greatest to ever play the game. He used the biggest defeat of his career as fuel to motivate him and to remind him of what defeat feels like. He did not fear failure. He immersed himself in it. From my own experience, the emotions elicited from losing a game were much stronger than those elicited from winning a game or a meet or a match. The positive emotions that came with winning were fleeting. The emotions that came from losing were inspirational. Everyone loves to win. In fact, I have never met a person that liked losing or hated winning. So it tells me a little bit about the person if their answer to the question is that they simply love to win. That is not to say that there is anything wrong with loving to win, but when you just love to win and losing does not bother you, it is easy to become satisfied with just good enough and become complacent in your approach to growth. In the end, failure is a far better teacher than success. A love for winning will only take you so far. However, if you are able to use your hatred for losing and draw motivation from your failures without letting adversity and negativity erode your confidence or keep you from playing the game, you give yourself a chance for greatness. Go Wildcats!
All right, there you go. Mrs. LeMaistre, it is your turn.
Ready? All right. I recently read an article about how Tom Brady spends significant time volunteering with underprivileged youth athletes. He teaches them life lessons about the value of education and integrity and hard work, and he often lectures about the art of losing. He famously tells them, "I love competition and really going for it and doing my best, but losing really isn't upsetting to me. I feel like if I do lose, the other person really deserved it." He also talks about how hard it is to be so good looking. I just made all of that up, well, except for the quote, which is real, and credited some guy no one's heard of who was in like the second High School Musical film. But did any of that sound like Tom Brady to you? The Tom Brady who played for the notoriously unethical Patriots, the guy at the center of Deflategate? It sure doesn't. He may be jerky and a cheater and someone who's made some seriously questionable fashion choices, but he is a winner at all costs. He's all, I'll take my record 7 Super Bowl rings and my supermodel wife and my multi-million-dollar homes and my irreverent movie cameos, because that's what winning looks like. And if we're gonna talk about athletes and winning, let's talk Michael Jordan. You know, his airness. The guy who gave Chicago the three-peat and established the Bulls as a 90s dynasty by winning 6 NBA championships. That's who Michael Jordan is to us, a winner, a GOAT. We don't talk much about his .202 batting average. when he played for the minor league Birmingham Barons, or his lackluster 2 seasons with the Washington Wizards. We talk about the winners. We celebrate their victories. Winning is our student body, all of LHS clapping and high-fiving our school's champions as they parade the halls in a championship march led by Mr. Woods. Winning is Megan Rapinoe leading the U.S. women's soccer team to a historic 4 World Cup titles. Winning is the people of Chicago losing their collective minds when America's team, the Cubs, finally won another World Series championship after over 100 years of losses. Winning is why we still talk about the '85 Bears, and we own it. We own winning. We credit our hard work and dedication and sacrifices when we win. We look inward and celebrate our strength and our resolve. Too often, we look elsewhere when we lose. We blame bad calls or tough courses or Steve Bartman. We blame bad luck and injuries and curses. We blame a billy goat. Mr. Woods just talked about how losing builds character. Well, as a middle-aged suburban mom and teacher who sometimes gets sore from sleeping too long, I can tell you that every day I encounter character-building opportunities that don't involve losing, by parenting a tween or going to the DMV, not screaming when a student asks me how to retake an assessment before they've taken it the first time, or screaming but only on the inside and then later in the teacher's lounge. You don't have to lose to build character. You have to compete. You have to bring it. You have to work hard and sweat and prepare. Maybe you have to fail, but you don't have to lose. The effort of preparation and growth, the struggle for greatness, these things build character as much, more I'd argue, as going home with the consolation prize or the participation ribbon or no ribbon at all. Winning gracefully builds character. Shaking hands with the bronze medalist from the tallest podium builds character. Being the best but pushing yourself because you want more builds character. Don't get me wrong, I don't think winning is everything. I'm not even sure it's the most important thing. As much as I see value in effort and in winning, I do see value in loss. It can be a powerful motivator, a reset. It can remind you of what's important, winning. Losing can keep you hungry. It can keep you humble. It probably makes you more likable. Ask Tom Brady. Losing can be valuable, but it shouldn't be your doctrine. It's like a cheat day. It's like eating a McDonald's Big Mac meal deal size large to remind you exactly why you shouldn't eat a McDonald's Big Mac meal deal. And then you go back to pretending you like kale chips and eating keto and that you understand what macros are because you know your body is a machine, a winning machine. If you don't think winning is important, you haven't hung out at a VFW hall on bingo night or seen me win $2 on a scratch-off lottery ticket. You haven't seen my kids' reaction when they hit big on skee ball at Chuck E. Cheese. And those are just the small wins. Most of you are too young to have seen it, but check out Halle Berry accepting the Academy Award for Best Actress, the first and only woman of color to do so, and tell me winning doesn't matter. To her, to the little girls who saw themselves in her, to all of us. Tell me Harvey Milk's election win didn't matter. Gosh, tell me our Revolutionary War victory isn't a pretty big deal. Winning is awesome, and in his heart, I think Mr. Woods agrees. But if he really thinks losing is so great, I'm sure he won't mind if you clap a little louder for me. Thank you.
All right. Let's see. This is kind of like an ironic moment, right? Like you guys are voting on who's going to win an argument about winning or losing. Enjoying Decibel X. No, not now. Okay. All right. If you believe the winner was Mr. Woods, make some noise. Okay. 85, that's respectful. No, respectable, that's what I meant to say. If you believe Mrs. LeMaistre is the winner, make some noise. That hit 100, folks. Congratulations, English department, represent. Thank you so much. Did you guys enjoy the Right Club bouts? Is that, yeah? Okay, good, because I love them. Thank you so much, all participants. We really appreciate it. Is losing even winning, Mr. Woods? There you go. All right, right on. All right, so we're switching gears a little bit, but I think, Mrs. LeMaistre, yours was a great kind of transition in a sense, because yours got really, touching in different moments of your speech. So we're going to bring up, we've had now multiple physics teachers on stage today. The first one did some impromptu poetry where she went backstage, Miss Torrance, that's who I'm talking about, and had basically like 20 minutes to write a poem. And she came out with something amazing. Now we have for you Mr. Buesing. also physics teacher. No, you guys have to stay there. Do you really want to get off the stage? People aren't going to be looking at you, O'Neill. Like, I think they're going to be looking at him. It's, yeah. See, there you go. Mr. Buesing, come on out. Do you want that raised up? Should I raise that up?
No, it's good.
Good, okay.
If we could clear that photograph and go to the text, that would be wonderful. So these are original poems I've written over the years. This first one was for my grandmother. I wish I had known you your whole life, to have spent more time. Is that too much to ask? All I have left are memories and a few old photographs. No matter how many times I dust them off, they seem to fade a little more. Just to hold your hand again and see that smile restored. The last words I said were, I love you. See you next time. But next time won't arrive, and I have so much more to say. So please just let me tell you, I'm missing you every day. And the next one. Time always ticks, the metronome of life, measuring the beat of a song not yet written. Words, poems, thoughts, and prayers are impotent weapons against the perpetual passage of time. Children stay young, and parents grow older. The changes I see in him are mirrors of a future not yet mine. But I'm not so young anymore, and not so old to be wise. You must teach me what you have been taught. When I look at my father's face, I read the wrinkles of a man weathered by a life I have only just begun. But now another barrier is broken between me and fate's fortune. I stand the lonely sentry facing the future. I persevere at my post, protected only by the thought that the best parts of me I owe to him. We'll do one more. We're going to skip the last one. Eyes open wide and not seen, arms stretching upward and not touching, sinking down deeper, dark and cold, reaching and pleading, no breath to take. Mouth opening and closing, a silent cry, he sees without seeing, giving up and giving in. I propel him upward into air, he breathes, I cannot. And I think we wanted to leave 10 minutes for Q&A.
If I can get the mic on, yeah, yeah, totally. So feel free, folks, if you've got questions, hang on to them just for a second, because we will give you a chance to ask all of our writers, really. I wanted to start, so Mr. Buesing, you and I, like, we've spent weeks together when you were cross-country coach, right? We'd spend weeks together up in Wisconsin with those kids. I've known you a little bit for a little while. I had no clue you wrote poetry, and such good poetry. So when did this start? How did this happen?
I think good is an adjective, but I could think of a couple others. I find I go to writing to process. So big events in my life that I need to process, I find that writing helps, and poetry has always been an outlet for me. I don't know why, but my dad wrote poetry, so maybe that's where I got it. In fact, I'm pretty sure that's where I got it.
How long have you been doing it?
Since grade school. Yeah, so it started with just writing little things. I had a couple English teachers that I really liked. One in particular in high school really encouraged me, and that stuck with me forever.
Can you tell us just a little bit about kind of the process? Is there, I guess, like a feeling, a thought that's inspiring it, and then are you revising much, or is it just kind of coming out?
For me, it's definitely a process, and I think that's the cathartic part of writing, especially if it's heartfelt kind of poetry. And the rewriting process helps you deal with what you're feeling, what you're thinking. In fact, when I pulled these open to email them to Mr. Tooley, I started changing things again for the 100,000th time. So I think that's normal and in some ways healthy. I mean, it's good if the story changes and if your feelings about the story change over time. I think that's normal.
How often have you shared them with other people?
Almost never.
So how does it feel?
10 years ago, 20 years ago, I definitely wouldn't have done it. But one wonderful thing about growing older is you start running out of foxtrots to give, if you know what I mean. Yeah, and you're an open book after a while.
Yeah, just give him you start, give him a round of applause. Give him a round of applause. Yeah. Almost every single teacher I've talked to who has come up on stage so far today, they've talked about how nervous, even though they're a teacher who gets up in front of students every single day, they talk about how nerve-wracking it is to get up on stage. I don't know if it's the auditorium, a larger audience, what the deal is. Like, I've experienced it myself for sure. So yeah, it is, even though you may look at these people as, mature adults, it is not easy to get up there and share, particularly stuff like this that means so much. So let's open it up for questions for Mr. Buesing, for any of the other 4 participants today. If you have something you want to ask them, just raise your hand. Yes, Mrs. Shanebeck. Sorry, I should have brought you the mic.
Well, I mean, it helps to just be effortlessly witty. I mean, that makes it a lot easier. Also, the rewriting process and going over it again and again and bouncing ideas off of people. I mean, whenever you see anybody up on stage, with the exception of a handful of great improv people, like that process only happens with practice, with repetition, with revising. I mean, even guys who do great improv, they have their routines in their head. They know what they're doing. They have models and stuff like that. So when you see people doing something effortlessly, it's only effortlessly because of the time put into it and the time revising it. I don't know if anybody else wants to jump in on that one.
I'm curious to hear Mrs. LeMaistre's response. Yeah.
Well, I too am effortlessly funny. So, no, I would agree. I think that for me, and something I tell my creative writing students is it's always going to come down to the specifics and the details. Like I've heard enough funny friends tell great stories, and they'll throw in the name of like the kid that picked on them in 2nd grade, and like I don't know who that kid is, but hearing the specifics of that name, I think that can lend itself to humor. But I would absolutely echo what Mr. O'Neill said. Like Ms. Bosman, I mostly wrote this 2 years ago. I wrote this anticipating a bout with Albert Sterner in 2020, and so that didn't happen. But I revisited this. I mean, there was a 2-year break in there, really, but I've revisited it several times, and just the things that make me laugh is what I hope make other people laugh. And for me, it's specifics.
Awesome. Other questions? Mr. Hieronymus?
Atrocious teacher at 22. I can still remember the first kid I failed, and I remember some of the tests I gave him. John Kowinski, if you run into it. It's brutal. So yeah, I 100%. Some of the parts I believe in, like some of the things, and that's why I think older teachers can get inspiration from younger teachers. But no, I didn't believe a word of it. Thanks for voting for me, though, guys.
I'll share. I think I grew up in a family of 5. I was the 4th of 5. There were 4 boys, and my sister was the oldest. And I think my earliest memory of hating to lose came when I was, I want to say I was like 5 or 6 years old. And my oldest brother and I were playing this game. It was called paper football, where you slide this little triangle football back and forth on the table. If it sticks over the edge, it's a touchdown. If it doesn't, then you slide it back the other way. And my brother, he not only was beating me, but he was torturing me and tormenting me by talking so much trash. He was relentless, and he was like 11. And so for him to pick on this little 5 or 6 year old, for some reason, I might need some therapy for this. Actually, this is therapeutic. Hang on, Scooter. But, and I really truly believe that has stuck with me. And the desire, sure, there's been a lot more wins than losses, but I do believe that for me, losing does drive that passion and that burning desire to never feel that again. Similar to the 85 Bears that were referenced, coincidentally, who have never won again, good enough was good enough. They became complacent, and that's why you don't see a lot of repeat winners. Michael Jordan hates losing. Tom Brady hates losing. And that's honestly what has driven me, I think, from day one. Don't get me wrong, I do love winning, just not today.
Awesome. Other questions? I did kind of think of something. I mean, Mr. Buesing, you kind of touched on this, but Mr. Woods was talking there for a second, about therapy. But I know you've mentioned to me a couple tough things that have been going on from time to time. Can you put into words how valuable that writing has been, how valuable the poetry has been when you have those moments? I know you kind of did that earlier. This is kind of a repeat question, but.
And full disclosure, a couple of those events did lead me to therapy just to have someone else to bounce ideas off of. But the writing is a tool in those situations. I've written some other stuff that's fluffier and lighter, but I find myself going back to those poems when they're on my computer now. They used to be on paper, but when I have a minute and I'm digging around in some old files, I'll pull them up and read them again. And it really is helpful to have that concrete, black and white kind of grounding that poetry and writing have given me over the years.
All right, I want to give you guys a chance to make sure I'm not missing any hands. Okay, so Ms. Bosman, I did have a question for you. As teachers, there are ways in which writing comes into play into our day-to-day life. So I'm wondering, just since it's Writers Expo, if you have any thoughts on how that's been a part of your career, what you've learned over the years as you've just had to kind of work with words, just, kind of like bits of advice for the students, I guess.
Like, how do I use words in my career?
Sure. That was a really weirdly worded question.
I love writing things down. I think it helps me stay organized. It helps process things, whether it's like a to-do list or just organizing my thoughts. I'm not sure if that's the question you're asking. I don't write down long, short stories to plan a unit or anything, but I think writing is really important.
There
And
you
I'll
go.
save the rest
Couldn't
for
say it
another
better
time.
myself. There you go. Thanks, folks. Monday, sports journalist Melissa Isaacson will be here. Please come back.